Wowzers! Look at the light here. I was just trying to start recording this morning here, a little video, but weird light. Let's close the window. I just thought you should see this. So I hit record. All right, window's closed. Okay, so yesterday I made a video talking about all the earthquakes that happened in British Columbia this last week. And somebody said to me, Joey, you know, if there is a comprehensive video about earthquake preparedness and safety, I would probably watch that many, many, many times. And I said, you know what? You're a loyal viewer. Thank you very much. I like you. Let's do that for you instead. Let's do that, okay? Let's do it right now.
There it is. This is bad news.
My God. Falling out right now.
Anything could happen.
Get on! Wow.
I'll watch the video later. They try mopping this.
All right, earthquake preparedness. Okay. All right, preparedness. Now, you know, there's a basic aspect before we talk about preparedness that I think I need to hit on, which is your mentality. So you can have you can look at all your books and decide, this book says I should have this in my kit, and Joey on YouTube says I should have this in my kit, and I should do this and stop, drop, and roll. And it's so you have you're retaining this information. And you're saying to yourself, well, this is the information I'm going to need to make, this is what I do. I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now what I'm getting at is your mental health, your mentality, your willingness to accept the situation. Understand that it's not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing. Nothing in life really is in your daily life. That these events require you to have a spirit of victory, a spirit of winning. In order to have that, you need to think ahead of time and sort of get angry about it, get mean, get survival oriented. You know what? I take for granted that everything's going to be fine. I take for granted that each day we're all going to go to work and the world's going to be normal and we're going to come home, you're going to ride the bus and click the light, the power is going to come on, go to the store, the milk's going to be in the fridge. You take these things for granted. And for a lot of people, when those normal structural things start falling apart, they fall apart very quickly because they never push themselves into a place to realize that emergencies and disasters and things can and will happen. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's you think about your mentality, your spirit. How do you get this fighting spirit? How do you get this winning spirit? How do you get a warlike attitude towards things, a hardness to you? A hardness that when shit hits the fan, you say, you know what? I can do this. That's number one. We're going to talk about the rest of this stuff. And we're going to talk about all these lists. And it's you can do all your best to put all these things into your head that I'm going to say now for the rest of the video. But if you don't have that fighting attitude, this hard attitude, this decision-making attitude, this attitude of I will not crumble or crack or fall down or give in or give up, that I will do everything I can right to the last minute to come to an outcome I can survive and live with how I survived in the aftermath as well, right? So it's one thing to have this hard attitude, well, this happened, now I'm going to go and steal that food from that mother because she's easy and weak. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, that would be completely wrong. It's called Prepared BC's Earthquake and Tsunami Preparedness Guide. What do we have on here? And you can find it at 2gov.bc.ca/asset/gov/public. So you better luck just to Google search the concept, Earthquake and Tsunami Preparedness Guide. This is what we're going to be looking at today. Largely, we're going to talk about all these things that they're suggesting in here and try to give ourselves. I'm just going to adjust my camera here so that we get a boom. There we go. Nice little image. I can just squeeze my face in there and we can start talking about everything in this website and try to get ourselves, on the same page here. So, earthquake safety. Here's a good one here. Drop, cover, hold on. I heard Johanna Wagstaff talking on the CBC television the other night saying how happy she was to hear that even though it was only a 5.1 magnitude, I guess it was 4.8 they settled on in the end or something like that. But people were reporting to her, despite the fact it wasn't a strong earthquake, that they had dropped, covered, held on, got under a desk, got into a doorway, got into the most solid central part of the house, things like that, right? So really important. After the shaking stops, count to 60. Now, I don't know if it matters if it's 59 or 62. The idea more is after this event happens, you may have some loose objects that are just about to crash and come falling and this and that. So, like, maybe you could, if you are observant and aware and take your time, that's what they're trying to say here is take your time. You're in a safe space right now. Oh, it's over. Don't just come running out and then, assume that you're safe. Take that time to look, smell, listen, check every direction, use your awareness, gain awareness. And during that time, try to come to grips with the fact that this is reality. It's happening. Accept the reality that's happening. Okay? Accept the reality that's happening. So get under there. Get down. It's the loose objects especially. It's like I got a moose head behind me here that I could fall off the wall and land on you. You wouldn't want that kind of thing. Okay. Tsunami safety. So if you're near the coast when an earthquake occurs, also drop cover and hold on. Unless you're like out in the open somewhere. If you're like in the middle of the beach and there's no trees anywhere and there's no skyscrapers and there's no pictures on the wall, I mean, do you need to drop cover and hold on? The point is, if you are, if you are near water, you need to do the next thing. Go to the high ground. The shaking is your tsunami warning. And stay there. Stay there. Now it says, tsunami waves may arrive for hours. This is a mistake a lot of people make. The tsunami hits, and they go, wow, it's over. And then they come on down to go check out everything that happened, and then the next wave hits. So be aware that tsunamis happen, in pulses. Because that water's trying to, and drop a big rock into a bucket and watch the way the ripples go and watch how the water moves. And you realize that, it takes a little while for the water to settle. That's the same when a tsunami happens. Okay, going to move on down. So earthquakes are common in British Columbia. 4,000 are recorded in the province each year. So this goes to the general point that Mark Ingalls really hammers on and that I was hammering on a little bit yesterday too. When people are saying like, this is something to change, but is this the sign of the big one coming? And it's like, if we've had 325 years since the last big one on the BC coast, and there's 4,000 earthquakes every year, so what's 4,000 times 325? I'm not going to bother looking it up. You can. It's an exceedingly high number. So we have, tens of thousands of earthquakes that happen in this part of the province, in this part of the country, especially up the coast, I mean to say, in the last 325 years, and none of them have produced the big one. Okay? Now, regardless of the fact that none of these earthquakes that happened this week are really even related to that Cascadia zone, so they definitely weren't going to be triggering the next big one, right? Earthquakes blowing off steam, in some cases along the bigger fault zone is a good thing. It's blowing some steam off. Good. Well, that means some pressure is being relieved, which means there's less chance of a major catastrophic earthquake down the road. So, it's the reality that earthquakes don't just happen in British Columbia, so that, you could be looking at this saying, well, I live in Manitoba. Okay, Manitoba's the least likely place to have an earthquake in Canada. Fair enough. But as you go into the Yukon's pretty seismically active. You can see how the continent is very well shaped by some sort of plate tectonic boundaries through northern Canada, through a lot of these big islands that have their own faulting systems. You got faulting system down the St. Lawrence River. You got faulting system in Niagara Escarpment in Ontario. You have these chance for larger earthquakes to happen, even magnitude 6 and maybe even 7 in the Quebec, Ottawa area. Like we had a 6.7 in Ottawa a couple years ago, right? So I'm giving you this little rundown on safety. Keep in mind that just because you're not in British Columbia doesn't mean you don't have to. And what if you come to British Columbia? What if you go to Quebec and an earthquake happens, right? So, hey, on January 26th in the year 1700 at 9 p.m., the magnitude 9 earthquake struck off the coast of BC and without warning was followed by a catastrophic tsunami that devastated the village of Lota. With no time to respond, all 5,000 residents were lost. This is the story of the great earthquake and tsunami that was told to me by my grandparents, George and Louisa Johnson. For generations, elders in our community as well as First Nations on the coast have maintained this legend and others like it as an oral history of our people. Today, our people at Pachena Bay and this oral history now plays a central role in how we understand tsunami risk in our community. We are able to use our history to learn from our past and prepare for future tsunamis. So there we go. Just a little example of this event that happened in history, and we know it happened because the tsunami waves hit Japan, and we can calculate, it happened at about 9 o'clock p.m., and then we have the oral tradition that, becomes this final piece of confirmational evidence. There you go. We know that 1700 was the last great big earthquake. So what is an earthquake anyways? A lot of you might not even know what an earthquake is. And far be it for me, to forget that sometimes I'm saying things that I just assume everyone understands because I understand it. And sometimes I have to realize, I'm here as a YouTuber to make things simple for a lot of people who don't have information or don't have knowledge or looking to attain knowledge. At least I hope that's why you're here. I hope that you're looking to attain knowledge. So we have these tectonic plates. The crust of the earth is broken into numerous large plates and subplates, and they tend to move a little bit. And they have a little bit of stress between them. They move slightly. They have not just the gravitational pull of the moon on them. They don't have just magmatic forces and stress and heat beneath them. They also themselves sort of slide around just a little bit on top of the surface of the planet, and at the will of some of these other things I just mentioned. Some movements are too small to notice. Others result in big earthquakes. And it doesn't take a very big movement to make an earthquake. It's just a little shift can have a profound shock. Aftershocks are generally smaller earthquakes. They're often what's going on with an aftershock is things are settling. So it's moved, and now it's like, it just gotta fall into its place now. It takes a little bit of time for it to kind of get its final resting spots. You get these aftershocks. Often it's something to that effect. Can go on for a long time. So there are 4 common types of earthquakes in British Columbia, and we'll talk about those right now so you have an understanding of what we're looking at. The number 1 is the big one, the Cascadia subduction zone. That's the Juan de Fuca plate. If it moves under the North American plate a little bit, it does. That's what it does. These earthquakes have the highest magnitudes released. And when you see these subduction zones around planet Earth, they are where the biggest earthquakes happen. You can think about the Sumatra, Indonesia earthquake in 2004, Boxing Day. You can think about the Japan quake in 2011. These are examples of subduction zone earthquakes. Now, a deep earthquake occurs well below the surface with the subducting Juan de Fuca plate. These generally result in weaker shaking. It's not out of the question that our Puget Sound earthquake was somewhat had some play between the Juan de Fuca plate, but I think that's its own distinct faulting zone there, and it probably wasn't related. But you can't have these deep earthquakes be because your plate is literally sliding underneath and way down there, way below, so you think here's the edge of the plates, but then the actual edge is somewhere way down below further on. So you have crustal quakes. They occur within the North American plate, within the plate. Closer to the Earth's surface, depending on their magnitude, these earthquakes cause significant damage sometimes. I think a good example of a crustal earthquake this week. You could say that the fracking one in Fort Grand Prairie was crustal. I think the shallow one that we saw by Seashell was probably a crustal earthquake. Happened only 1 kilometer deep. Very, very shallow earthquake, depending on comparing to our deep earthquake, which was over 20 kilometers below. Sometimes they're much lower than that, right? So these crustal quakes can be strong. They can cause significant damage, especially if you're near them. I think the Ottawa earthquake a few years ago was probably a crustal quake. Okay, then we have this other one, the Queen Charlotte Fault off Haida Gwaii. So they have the earthquakes there. The Pacific Plate there slides past the North American Plate, kind of side by side in this case. They're kind of rubbing against each other, whereas our subduction zone earthquake is literally diving under, and then that's how the stress gets created, right? Whereas these are two plates that are sitting like this, and they're rubbing, and they get kind of caught, locked, and then the stress builds up, and then finally one side lets go. No matter the type of earthquake, you need to be prepared. This just gives you some of the examples, right? So first we see our deep earthquake, and this gives that sort of picture I was trying to paint. Like the crust is diving deep down beneath, and then we end up having an earthquake. What are we at here? Number 2, deep earthquakes, and crustal earthquake was number 3. So they have the crustal earthquake here, just to not confuse you by the numbers. I think our example of the crustal earthquake was a seashell one this week, and where 3 is where 2 should be possibly for what happened in Puget Sound. But I'm not sure if Puget Sound was deep or crustal and what that play was necessarily. But here you can see how the two plates are rubbing against each other up by Haida Gwaii, and why like we had in 2011, I believe it was, a very, very strong earthquake at that time. However, not one, quite as likely to do what the Juan de Fuca plate would do. And I was showing you kind of that, the one plate's diving underneath the other, and it builds this stress, and then when it lets go, and that's why these ones create such big tsunamis as well. Okay, on to the next one. Before an earthquake, you need to make a plan. Don't wait for another earthquake event to happen before you start making your plans. Don't wait any longer. Get making your plans now. Don't put it off. Don't put it off till next year. Don't say, well, there's the chance, and be the one who's caught out in the open. This is what happens is people, they don't take emergencies seriously because they live in a very comfortable life, very comfortable society, civilization we're in now, very comfortable for everybody to just kind of get up every day and go to work and come home and have supper and everything's really nice. And, we'll make a plan someday for an earthquake. And then the earthquake happens or a tragedy happens and you aren't emotionally, physically ready. All this stuff that's going to be listed now, this is stuff that may help you be more emotionally ready. If you can do these things, you're like, well, I have a plan. I'm prepared. I've thought about this. So these, maybe I was saying earlier, you can't replace these things with being emotionally ready, but these things may help you become more emotionally ready, right? So phone, gas, electric, and water services may not work after an earthquake. If it's a big one, it's not a matter of may not work. It's everything's going to be fucking smashed, okay? Roads will be blocked, stores will be closed, gas stations will not have gas. This is why I don't want to live in the big city. That's why I don't want to be in Vancouver. I don't want to live down there. And I'm not trying to terrify you all, and I don't think that the big one's going to happen anytime soon. It may not ever happen in my lifetime, but if there's like a 0.0001% chance it can, I don't want to be in a big city when that happens. I don't want to be around millions of people who aren't prepared. I have cupboards full of rice, lentils, freezers full of stuff, I'm really set up here to go quite a while. Perhaps eating quite blandly. I might have to eat rice and lentils every day for 3 months when it comes down to it in a real civilization breaking moment. It could take a long time for these things. And keep this in mind too. I'm stocked up here understanding that if Vancouver experiences a major catastrophic earthquake, all the systems of supply will be disrupted. And even Quesnel is going to have trouble getting gas and food and things like that. If roads are smashed, assume that things could be very, very bad for a while, even if you aren't in the catastrophe zone. You could be on your own for several days. Yeah, it could go much longer than that. Although, let's be real, in our day and age, we tend to get on top of these events really quickly and start making efforts to help people and save people and turn the corner. But if we're talking if it's a 9.3 mega quake, the damage could be so extreme that the resources aren't there to get to you for a week or 2 weeks. You're on some island. You live on an island out in the middle of nowhere off the, between Vancouver and the Vancouver Island. It may take a month before someone gets to you. I'm not saying it will, Most likely not. But if you don't know how long it might take. Don't assume. Don't assume that civilization is just going to come and fix it for you. Okay? It may be weeks before infrastructure, utilities, and essential services are restored. It may be weeks before there's power. It may be weeks before there's phone lines. It may be weeks before there's internet. It may be weeks before there's frozen food in the store and you can just go and buy a bag of milk. I say bag of milk, you can tell I'm Ontario boy still. Speaking of Ontario, I mean, I felt a little bit the earthquake here on, I think it was Wednesday morning or Thursday morning. Felt a little bit of the Grand Prairie one. Felt a slight shift once or twice when I was living down the coast. Definitely felt one when I lived in Ancaster, Hamilton, Ontario. The strongest earthquake I ever personally felt was in Ontario. I felt more earthquakes in Ontario than I have in BC, and especially if I think of like the amount of shaking or whatever I felt from my Ontario earthquake experiences would dwarf my BC experiences. So, I mean, being told it's tectonically active province, I've yet to experience that, but I won't allow that to make me complacent. I won't allow that to lull me into thinking that this couldn't just happen any day. It could happen any second. So consider the unique requirements of people in your house, your children, your adults, your pets. Are you ready for them? Think about what they need to be safe and comfortable during an emergency. You know, I'm just going to tell you the word comfortable, abandon it. Okay? Abandon the word comfortable. Abandon the hope of comfort. And I'm not saying this to be hard or mean or callous. Abandon that need for it. That is the survival mentality you're going to have. You're going to have to not be rattled by the fact that comfort is just not available because we've now have endured a mega disaster. A mega disaster. What we're talking about here with the Cascadia subduction zone, we're talking about a mega disaster. Unlike anything you've ever seen in your lifetime so far here in British Columbia or Canada. That's what will happen someday. It will happen someday. It's not a matter of if. It's not a matter of if. It's only how long do we have? How long do we have till that Cascadia zone rips? We don't know. So, ahead of time, though, this is a little checklist you can download from the website. I'm not going to bother, but first of all, I like this identify the hazards in your region. You know, I know people are walking around looking at their phone, looking at TikTok, talking, blah, 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 not paying. When you're moving throughout your day, pay attention to the things that are around you. Be present in your reality. Consider things. Consider objects. Look at things and say, what would I do? What would I do if I was there? What would I do if I was there and this happened? What would I do? Spend time thinking about that kind of shit. And it shocks me that people don't. People are terrified to think about that kind of stuff, I guess. It's like, I don't know. Like, instead we got in our heads headphones on and we're listening to the new pop song. Da, 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 da. I'm going to work today. How are you? And that's how people go through life. And you want to survive. Besides survive, come out well in these events or even become a leader for those around you, you need to be aware ahead of time. Have an emergency phone list with one out of area contact. Sounds great. What if there's no phone lines? Okay, pick a meeting spot if you're separated from loved ones. This is a really good one. This is a really good idea ahead of time to have some, because, I just said, what if the phone lines are down? I'm going to assume that there's no power or phone or things like that, especially in the disaster area when the disaster area happens. So having a meeting spot, having a plan ahead of time, having some of these basic plans ahead of time might be very, very helpful for you to get together with people. Okay, learn how to turn off utilities, especially gas lines. That's the big one, right? Water lines, sure. You might have to find out where in your building. I know you're a renter, you live in an apartment building, whatever. Find out how to turn off the gas lines and water lines. It may help you not blow up or flood your house. So secure your space, but that's what we're talking about. Secure your space. Okay, identify what official sources you'll get information from. Hopefully you get some information from me. I'd like that. I'd like to be the one during a disaster who's trying my best to help you. That makes me feel better, makes me feel like I have a purpose on this world. Emergencies do. makes me feel like I can contribute something. That maybe, even though I'm a mad lunatic mountain man artist freak who's never going to fit in anywhere in the world, when an emergency happens, all those things I talked about, mental headspace, you see me at a wildfire, you see me, I'm not scared. I'm always in thought. I'm always planning, and I'm always observing, watching, ears open, eyes open. And when someone's talking at me, I'm not sitting there looking at their eyes, listening to them. I'm listening, but I'm head up. Look behind me. Look ahead of me. Anyways, what official sources? Dudes, the province of British Columbia. That's who you need to get your information from. You're reading this. I don't understand why preparedbc.ca has this checklist that says, identify whether or not you'll be looking towards us for information in the province of BC. No, obviously the official source you're going to be looking forward to the most is probably going to be your province, most likely. Maybe there's Environment Canada people. Maybe there's military people on the ground. But, generally it's the provincial. And if not provincial, your direct community assets such as your mayor and council and things like that. They'll have specific on evacuation zones, specifics on planning. So, identify what official sources from. I think this shouldn't be on the checkmark list. It should just be up ahead saying, be prepared to get information from the province and from your municipality. Identify special needs, such as medications. Of course, don't let your meds get empty. You let your meds get all empty, and then suddenly you just can't go to the store and get your resupply, right? Store enough food and water for at least 2 weeks. I like that they say at least 2 weeks, because I've been just sitting here saying, earlier up there it said, be prepared for a couple days. No, I think at least 2 weeks is possible if it's a major, major catastrophic earthquake. Learn about the Canadian earthquake early warning system. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to work too well the other day. And it's maybe good news that they're ironing out the kinks with earthquakes that aren't generally that impactful to the province. A 4.7, although strong earthquake, and everyone felt it, and it gave them a good reminder. You got to be more into the 6 or even 7 before you're finding for magnitude, before you're finding these earthquakes being so impactful that the early warning system is going to be really useful in terms of so what the early warning system does is, of course, you've got these two kinds of waves that come from an earthquake. You have your P waves and you have your S waves. The P waves are the ones that are immediately, they're the speed of sound, like these P waves when the event happens. And we can measure those P waves. The shake waves are slow and they come in behind. And so if we can catch the P wave, bloop, sending a warning out, hey, P waves have been detected before the shake waves come. It might only give you 10 seconds notice. It might give you 5 seconds. It might give you 15. It might not be much for notice, but that might be enough for you to quickly look and say, there's a table I'm going to get underneath it right now before everything's flailing and I'm flailing and it's all horror show. Drop, cover, and hold on. Get under your table, whatnot. So, good news that we've found the mistakes that are happening, and they can be fixable. Okay, early warning, emergency alert. This is an emergency alert. The Canadian earthquake early warning system sends alerts to the public. So apparently on Friday, some people got them, some didn't. Some got them 25 minutes after the fact. I don't know if that's a matter of different cell providers. I'm not sure if that's got to do with location of the people who were involved. Nonetheless, some problems seem to be happening there that are fixable. So, storing emergency supplies. If your home is structurally safe, the best thing you can do is shelter right there. Stay where you are. Wait. Help, stay out of the way. If we can have fewer people on the streets, let first responders do their jobs. If you are physically, mentally capable, have lots of experience and able to, volunteer somewhere, I totally encourage that. And that means also volunteering for first responders. Some of that stuff may be happening, right? So having lots of non-perishable food, water, emergency supplies. Like I have a closet full of canned goods. I got rice. I got bags of oats. I got like 6 boxes of pancake batter. I mean, I got Several freezers with food in them here. It's not always this loaded here, but thanks to people sending care packages this Christmas, a couple care packages come and whatnot, and a little bit of shopping I did. I kind of got my supplies back up to a place where I feel, yeah, I can go for a while in this scenario. You may have to be maybe 2 weeks or longer, it says. Make sure everything is stored together in an accessible location, right? So you prepare grab-and-go bags for each person, including pets, in case you have to leave quickly. And that's kind of a neat idea, and I do sort of have something like that more or less ready because I'm a wildfire fighter, and I come home in the fall and open up my travel bags, and I do wash them and whatnot, but more or less the travel bag's sort of sitting there in my spare room right now, where I could throw 6 things into it and go. And in there's first aid kits, and I got gloves, and I got, everything. And, it's my wildfire go bags, right? So I have that because I go when these things happen. Reality, if you are in BC Wildfire Service or a contract crew member, you might get called to be part of the emergency response. So be prepared for that reality within your fire crews and your companies. Be prepared for the reality that you've gone to flood mediation and mitigation before, and you've gone to flood events, you've gone to Grand Forks, put sandbags there in 2019 and whatnot. You've been through, or 2018, you've been through a bunch of these events as wildfire fighters that weren't wildfires. A lot of us, if we've been any length of time in the service, I'll admit, not me. I got passed over for a sandbagging deployment, and have no regrets about not getting that paycheck. That's shitty work. First aid kits, medications, dust masks. Consider this. It's going to be dusty. Shit's falling down. If buildings are falling down, could be asbestos in the air. There could be particles and dust. I never would have considered to have a dust mask available in my kit. So that's, something I'm learning here too. Garbage bags and moist towelettes for personal sanitation. Okay. Another thing that we use a lot instead of moist towelettes these days is, stuff you put on your hands there. And I can't think of the word for it. The antibacterial crap. Copy of your emergency plan, copies of important documents. Here's a good one. Having your important documents all in an accessible place so you can kind of have them in your go bag, maybe, copies of them. Water. People drink up to 4 liters per day. Need a lot of water. Need a lot of water, friends. And water system may be wrecked for a while to come. It may be hard to get water in your own community. So consider that water. Certainly, I know these days when an emergency response happens, bringing in boatloads of water is something that generally is part of it. So, try to have as much as you can. Non-perishable foods for at least 2 weeks with a manual can opener. You need one that you can use your hand to crank open, okay? So non-perishable foods. Get quality food, not just sugar and crap. You need to survive now. And the quality of your food will change your mental state and give you a better chance. Great example here at Diggy's Diner. Moose Island Foods is making those buckets with their freeze-dried meals in them. Perfect, they're like nutritionally sound meals. Seasonal clothing, sturdy footwear, emergency blankets. I think it's really a good idea if you're one of these major earthquake zones, which I'm not here in Wells. This is probably the safest part of BC. If you're in Vancouver, have good footwear near your bed. If it happens in the middle of the night and you got to get up and there's broken glass and shit everywhere, okay? Phone charger, power bank, or inverter. Hopeful that you can keep your phone charged. Hopeful that there's going to be cell communication. We don't know. Hand crank radio, battery powered radios. Okay. Whistles for signal to help. Sure. Toiletries and extra pair of glasses and things like that. Preparing your home. Strong shaking can cause large furniture and appliances to fall over. Cupboard doors to fling open, right? So secure freestanding furnitures like bookcases, cabinets, and shelving to wall studs using L brackets and things like that. Try to secure them, or at the very least, have them away from the areas you're most likely to be sitting in and hanging out in and spending time in. Move framed pictures and mirrors from beds, couches, and chairs. Like I just said, secure cabinet doors with push or pull latches as if you're on a boat. That may seem a little extreme, but in some cases, it may be a good idea for you. Use strong strapping and ratchets or other connectors to secure refrigerators, freezers, washers, dryers, anchor water heaters snugly to the wall. If necessary, contact a licensed gas contractor to install a flexible gas line. Okay, learn how to turn off your home's electrical panel, water, and gas valves. I'm not going to go into how to do that. Figure it out. If you live in a big building, ask the manager, right? Say, I just want to know in case there's ever an earthquake, where are our gas lines, where are our water mains, what do I do if no one's here to shut those things off? Research insurance options. I don't care. Okay, that's your problem. During an earthquake, drop, cover, hold on. If you're using a cane, drop, cover, hold on. If you're using a walker, lock the walker first and maybe sit on it, cover and hold on. Using a wheelchair, lock the wheels. Lock the wheels again. You don't want to be just rolling around, both for the walker and the wheelchair, rolling around and having yourself at the whim of gravity. Drop to your hands and knees. It will allow you to move if you have to, and it will prevent you from falling, because the falling can be the thing that, there's nothing falling off your walls, but now you've fallen and hitting your head on the counter, right? Cover your head and neck with your arms and take shelter under sturdy furniture. Crawl to the nearest interior corner or wall while continue to protect your head and neck. Keep your head and neck protected, okay? Make sure you're willing to count to 60 before you move, or just use great situational awareness. I don't think the amount of seconds that you're counting is really the point. The point is be aware if you're coming out from under that table what could be going on around you, right? Just don't just come out. It's over. Come out. Don't just come out. Okay, after an earthquake, stay in your home. Move cautiously. Look for hazards. Keep your eyes open. Look up. Look down. Look behind you. Look to your left. Look to your right. Smell. Listen. If you have to, hold your breath. Close your eyes. Listen. Removing your breathing may help you hear a gas line or something, Listen. Smell. Look. If your home has considerable damage and poses a risk, you may have to evacuate immediately. Take your grab-and-go bags and follow your instructions from your First Nations or local government. Reception centers are going to get open. Only call 911 for life-threatening emergencies. They're going to be inundated with calls. It's going to be too much for them to handle, so they need you to deal with it yourself if it's not life or death. I know that's hard. We're not used to that, but that's the reality in a major, major situation like this. So what is a tsunami? So you got these huge underwater earthquakes, or you have, in one case in Alaska, a large chunk of ice fell into the ocean, and that created a tsunami this one time. You get these famous tsunamis, but they're mostly underwater earthquakes. The waves can be 100 kilometers long, and they can be hours apart. They can move as fast as a jet plane, 800 kilometers an hour. So you see it coming in the distance, you better get moving. You don't have time to wait. You don't have time to sit there and stare for a while and wait for it to come in. You need to get moving fast, okay? Bays and beaches and tidal flats, coastal riverbanks, and inlets along BC coastlines are at the most risky places to be. So, know where to go. Same thing I was talking about earlier. As you're going around through your life, pay attention. What would I do if this happened while I'm here? Think about these things ahead of time, especially if you're in places where you always come and go from. Never go to watch a tsunami because it's coming at you at 800 kilometers an hour. 800 kilometers an hour, then you're going to turn around and try to run away? Nope, not going to make it. You're dead. Okay? Don't go watch the fucking tsunami. Run. Don't go to the water. If you see it receding, the water will, this is what happens, is the water actually recedes out. People go, wow, look at the water's going away. And they run down there to go look at it. This could be a sign, generally, that a tsunami is about to happen. It moves faster than you can run. 800 kilometers an hour. Get to the high ground immediately. Immediately. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. We don't know how far off this earthquake is when it first happens. You don't know if it happened 200 kilometers offshore or 50 kilometers offshore. You don't know how much time you have before that tsunami could get to you. Okay? Get away from the water. Okay, so know your zone. So they've got 5 different tsunami notification zones. This is important. So in Zone A is the north coast and Haida Gwaii. Zone B is Kitimat, Bella Coola, Port Hardy, and some of the northeast of Vancouver Island coast, okay? If you go to Zone C, it's the outer west coast of Vancouver Island from Cape Scott to Port Renfrew. This is a very, very at-risk place, obviously. Zone D is the one to Fuca Strait from Jordan River to Greater Victoria, including the Saanich Peninsula, just this little blue zone down here. And the Strait of Georgia, including the Gulf Islands and Greater Vancouver and Johnstone Strait, is what we'll call Zone E. Understand tsunami alerts. So you get a warning. Flood wave is possible. Full evacuation suggested. Don't wait. You get a warning. Go. Tsunami advisory. Strong currents likely. Stay away from the shore. Tsunami watch means the events just happened and we have no idea what's going on. We don't know what the danger is. Stay alert for more information. But I would say full evacuation. Stay away from the shore. Okay. Information statement. Minor waves at most. No action suggested. And cancellation means, confirms the safety. Confirms safety of local areas and nothing's happening, okay? Tsunami warning systems is an international program to detect tsunamis. It provides notifications and warnings to all countries bordering Pacific, Indian, and Caribbean oceans. Caribbean Sea. Okay. So, the public, First Nations, municipality, and regional districts in at-risk zones will get alerts sent to them. Provincial and federal government agencies and news media. Once a community is alerted that a tsunami may be happening or is expected, residents will receive information from different methodologies such as radio, television, telephone, text message, door-to-door contact, perhaps from your district or from the RCMP, social media, weather radios and or outdoor sirens. Weather radios are becoming a very, very rare thing, but they still exist out there apparently. Find out in advance how communities where you live will be sharing their information about a tsunami. Here at Wells, in 3,953 feet above sea level, we don't have much risk of a tsunami, although it's not out of the question that, a chunk of the mountain could break off and fall in the lake and send a tsunami at us towards here in Wells. But no, that's obviously not a very high risk. So, of course, where you live is going to depend on how much risk you are exposed to. So during the tsunami, drop cover, hold on, then get to the higher ground. Don't fuck around. Get out there as fast as you can. If you're near the coast and see a sudden rise or fall of the ocean or hear a roar, move to higher ground immediately. If you feel a strong earthquake, move to higher ground immediately. Once you're on high ground, stay there. It may be 8 hours before the tsunami comes. The first wave's not always the largest. You got to wait for an all clear from officials before assuming the event is over. You don't know. A strong earthquake near land could generate a tsunami that arrives in minutes. Get away as fast as you can. Ready.gov. Here you get this emergency supply list, your basic disaster kit. A couple things here just to go through. I think we're coming to the end of our little segment here. Thanks for paying attention and watching. I'm doing my best to kind of keep you in the loop. Here we go. So water, food, battery-powered flashlights, hand crank radio, flashlights. Yep. First aid kit. The better first aid kit you have, the better. Extra batteries, good to have. Whistles, dust mask, plastic sheeting, scissors, and duct tape. Moist towelettes, garbage bags, and plastic ties, wrenches or pliers, manual can openers, local maps, know your area, cell phone with chargers and backup battery. Also consider soap, prescription medications, non-prescription medications such as anti-diarrhea medication, and acids or laxatives, prescription eyeglasses, contact lens solution. Do you need that? Infant formula, bottles, diapers. Will you need this stuff? Pet food and extra water for your pet. Do you need this stuff? Cash or traveler's checks. This is like something out of the 80s there. Important family documents. Are you going to need these things? Sleeping bag or warm blanket for each person, especially through the winter. Think about this. You may be without power. You may be trapped. You may need to be warmer than you think. If you don't have a good sleeping bag, get one. Please, you may have to go stay somewhere else. You'll be glad you have that sleeping bag. Complete change of clothing for your family. Fire extinguisher may be really key. Fires break out after earthquakes often. That's one of the side effects of a lot of earthquakes sometimes is fires in history. When you have better building codes, so less of a risk than maybe once was, but still a risk. Matches in a waterproof container. feminine supplies and personal hygiene, mess kits, paper cups, plates, towels, utensils, pencils, papers, books, games, puzzles, and other activities for children. So you got to maintain your kit, keep it stored in a dry, cool place, store boxed food in tightly closed plastic or metal containers, replace expired items, rethink your needs every year, update your kits, okay? Keep this kit in a designated place in your home, have it ready, make sure everyone knows where it is. Be prepared to shelter at work for 24 hours. Your work kit should include food, water, other necessities like medicines. Be prepared, man. Be ready. Be ready in your car. Have a kit ready there as well. That is what I got on the topic for you today. Sorry that's a long one, but please, if you want to thank me for the hard work I put into making this, it's a request from one of the viewers, please hit the thanks button. Send me a couple bucks there. Buy me a coffee. Really makes a difference. Really brings up my spirit. Also, if you hit like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, help me grow the channel because I'm pro-democracy and I'm very outspoken. I'm a bit of a hillbilly lunatic. I've lost some followers and viewers for speaking out about Trump, speaking in favor of Canada, speaking about our sovereignty. Not everyone likes what I've been saying. The algorithms aren't favoring weather channels right now. They're not. So a lot of people like myself are sort of struggling with their YouTube existence. So please support content creators who are doing things that you think are important. That's what I got to say for today. We'll come back at you with some forecast news for the week later on today. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Till then. Bye now.